What's up, everybody? Welcome into DodgerHeads, presented by DodgerBlue.com, part of the Blue Wire Podcast Network. My name is Jeff Spiegel, and joined today by special guest Will Carroll, aka Injury Expert. If you follow him on Twitter, and Will, I appreciate you hopping on. I've got questions for you about Tyler Glasnow, but we'll start with just
Yeah,
how's the offseason treating you.
it's going well. I mean, obviously, we had the Ohtani thing that kind of overshadowed the winter meetings down in Nashville. The Glasnow trade to add to that. So, if you're a Dodger fan, it's going really well. If you're
Yeah,
everybody else, well, you're waiting. Yeah, I think the Diamond Sports thing is a black cloud over the sport right
yeah.
now. I don't think we're going to get a quick resolution to that. But again, if you're a Dodger fan, who cares? You've got the Sportsnet deal and all the money in the world.
Exactly. It's a good time to be a Dodgers fan. I was getting some dirty looks with my Dodger shirt going through airports yesterday. So, it is what it is. Let's talk Tyler Glass now. And kind of the baseline question I want to ask you is, as a guy who studies this stuff, and this is your forte, what's a reasonable expectation? When this trade was initially rumored, I'll be honest, I was very skeptical. I didn't like it. I didn't like what the Dodgers were giving up. And the number one reason was because of the health piece and the fact that, the reports he'd thrown 133 innings last year. I do think it's a little misleading because if you count minor league stuff, he had thrown more than that, but not since 2017. When they extended him, I felt a little bit better. It wasn't just getting 1 year of Glass. Now you're getting,
Right.
4, that kind of thing. But given the injury history, which, as a recap, he had a forearm injury that cost him 4 months in 2019. Then he has Tommy John surgery in 2021. We now know those two things.
No,
Okay, go ahead.
he did not have Tommy John surgery. I think that's the key here. Let's talk about that after you recap what he's had.
Yes. And then just to add on was the oblique. It cost him 2.5 months in
Yeah.
2023. So that's how you get to a point where he threw about 140 innings in 2016 across all levels, 155 in 2017. Then it starts dropping 111, 63, 57. That was a shortened year, 88 and 21, just 7 in 2022, 133 last year. So from you, knowing what we know now, because again, the Tommy John piece is the new bit of news that we've gotten in the last couple of weeks. How confident should I be as a Dodgers fan that Tyler Glasnow might be healthy?
Not very.
Okay.
But let me give you a but there. I'm not worried about the elbow.
Okay.
I'm more worried about lower back, obliques. He's had problems with that because he is a very tall. He's 6'8", and he's every bit of 6'8". I remember, gosh, it's a ways back when he was here in Indianapolis, where the AAA affiliate for the Pirates. He was a top draft pick back then. And obviously was traded away in a big deal for, gosh, I think it was Chris Archer, wasn't it? Another great deal for the Rays.
Yeah.
And I think that might have even been an Andrew Friedman deal, if I remember right. So here's the thing with Glasnow. He's had these niggling little injuries. The Tommy John, which wasn't Tommy John, it was an internal brace procedure. Let's talk about that one because that's the one that has everybody worried and saying, oh, Tommy John, Shohei Ohtani just had Tommy John. No, he didn't. He had a similar but not identical procedure. We still don't know what the heck Ohtani had. Yeah. Glasnow had what's called an internal brace revision. So they opened him up and placed a little piece of suture tape, which is basically, it looks like a shoelace. The substance is kind of like Kevlar, but not exactly, but it's super strong. They drill that in on one side, they drill that in, overlay the ligament, repair the ligament, put them back together. So from the time the anchors on that suture tape heal, you pretty much can't re-tear that ligament.
Wow.
So that's the beauty of it. We've seen this used on ACLs. We've seen this used on ankles. We've seen this used on high ankles for years. Gosh, I'm blanking on his name. The tight end from Georgia came back from high ankle reconstruction in 26 days.
Crazy. Brock
26
Bowers
days. What's that?
Is it Brock Bowers this year's?
That's it. I couldn't think of his name. So we're seeing guys come back faster and faster from this. Aaron Rodgers had tightrope, which is similar to suture tape. Again, done by Neil Elitrosh. There are two guys that are doing most of these in the major leagues, which is Neil Elitrosh, obviously the doctor for the Dodgers, though he does it for a lot of other teams as well. And then Keith Meister, who's team doctor for the Texas Rangers. There are a number of others. Jeff Dugas in Birmingham kind of helped develop it for the elbow. So this is super strong, and we're seeing an extremely low revision rate, which means that tape's not breaking. The ligament underneath it is protected by that suture tape. So am I worried about it? No. We don't have a lot of data. There was another thing saying, well, what's the 3-year data on this? We've only been doing this operation 2 years, so we don't have it yet. It's one of those things where I feel very confident in the results because we've done this for years in ankles. The first doctor was Dr. Mackay in Scotland. A lot of soccer guys have had this. We haven't had a lot of revisions. So I feel really good about it. What I think the Dodgers need to do, and what the Dodgers are very good at, is maintenance. If you think about Clayton Kershaw over the last few years with both his shoulder and his back, they've been able to handle those. He's obviously had flare-ups, but they've been able to keep him maintained. So if they can keep Glasnow's obliques healthy and his back healthy, and I think they're interrelated, then I feel really good about it. Basically, what you're getting is DeGrom, and that's pretty good when he's pitching. So, am I expecting 200 innings? No. Who throws 200 innings these days? But if you get 150 really good innings from Tyler Glasnow, I think that's the ace slot of the rotation locked up.
One note to clean up real quick, because I'll get crushed in the comments if I mess this up. Friedman came in 2014 to the Dodgers, and Glasnow was traded in 18. So wasn't the guy that acquired. But I do want to go back to kind of what you said. Hey, I'm not worried. Most people look at this and say forearm, elbow. Wow, that's concerning. This is a problem. He clarifies, hey, this is the surgery I had. It was the same injury, and that he feels confident. Of course, he's going to say that. But what you said that was interesting to me is you're not concerned about the elbow. You're concerned about the oblique. Now, kind of how I want to ask this question is, everybody comes with injury risk. And so there's not really anybody that you just say, hey, 0% chance this guy gets injured. I guess the way I want to ask it is, given what you just explained to me about the forearm and the elbow, is the injury conversation around Glasnow overblown in your estimation? Because it feels like the elbow is typically at the center of it. Look, this guy's missed, 4 months in 2019. He misses 15 months in 2021 and 2022. He only throws, 130 innings last year because the oblique. Oh my gosh, the Dodgers are going to be lucky if this guy throws 100 innings. And now they've signed him for 130 million. But it feels like maybe, maybe there still is injury risk, but maybe it is overblown because the elbow is actually not really concerning to you.
Yeah, I think what you're worried about is again, if you're expecting 200 innings from anyone, quit it. You're come back from 2005. We just don't have those kind of pitchers anymore. We don't allow guys to do that. So if you're getting 150 to 180 innings, which is, if he didn't have the oblique, he would have hit that. If you'd gone deeper into the playoffs, no, I'm not that terribly worried about it. If you lose him for a couple months because of obliques, that's bad, especially with the lack of depth in the Dodger rotation. But, that's the same risk that pretty much anybody has. The elbow is the least of the worries. I'd be more worried about something like a shoulder or a lat, which he hasn't had. That's what I worry about, is the things that pop up on every pitcher. You send them out there. Every pitcher is healthy until they aren't.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. And I mean, because look, if you told me, and a guy that was skeptical of this trade, if you say, hey, I would have no issue projecting Glasnow for 150 innings a year for the next 3 years, then I think that dramatically changes how I view this trade.
Yeah. So, I think that's entirely reasonable. There's probably a low where you get 90 to 100 if he has more oblique injuries, a back injury, shoulder injuries are devastating. Those are the ones that scare me the most with any pitcher. For the elbow, no. I mean, even if this had been classic Tommy John, then you're looking at really a 5-year window, what we call the Tommy John honeymoon, where most people don't re-injure it. Ohtani was dead on that when he re-injured himself. So I'm not that terribly concerned about that, nor am I concerned about Ohtani. I'd be less concerned if I knew what the heck Neil did to his elbow, but we may never know.
Well, okay, and I didn't prep you for this because I was going to ask about Glasnow, but you've mentioned Ohtani. I do want to ask. I mean, that was a big question that was asked of him at his press conference, and he dodged the question.
Touched it.
There was an interview that Atrash did with the LA Times where it kind of there was some
He
bits
dodged it too.
yeah, exactly. He dodged it in a far more skillful way where it felt like he was telling you something, but you kind of walked away and said, "Wait, did I actually learn anything here?" So to shift gears from Glasnow to Ohtani, a guy who's not going to pitch this year, we know that. Expected to be ready as a hitter. It sounds like by spring training / opening day, somewhere in there. But give me kind of what Dodger fans need to know about his injury and maybe the 2-year outlook.
Well, the 2-year outlook is great, and I think that's where it gets interesting. You know, I wrote about this at Under the Knife that I love the Glasnow trade. I like Glasnow as a pitcher. I think what he does is locks things down. But the problem was they didn't address the depth.
Yeah.
And what they need is a bridge pitcher right now. Giving up Pepio, it was just one of those things where it doesn't help the depth. Who's going to be that 4, 5,
right,
6 pitcher? Most teams needed 9 last year.
Yeah, I think the Dodgers went to like 11 or 12.
Yeah, exactly. And when you look at the depth chart, you're like, okay, if we have to go here, we're basically, I'm the 12th man on the Dodger rotation, I think. So with Ohtani, he's going to be hitting very early. This is comparable to Bryce Harper. The timing's a little bit different. Ohtani had his procedure a little bit later, I think.
Okay.
But Harper's was long. He had classic Tommy John. He didn't have the overlay of suture tape. We don't know that's what happened with Ohtani, but we think it's something like it.
Okay.
Here's the thing. Neil has been working with techniques like this. He's done suture tape overlays, just like developed by Dr. Jeff Dugas, who I mentioned earlier at the Andrews Sports Medicine Institute, or Andrews Sports Medicine in Birmingham, excuse me. And we've seen these.
Yeah.
He did something different. And again, he hasn't said exactly what. I have some theories. And again, you can go back on Under the Knife and read about my theories. I don't think we're ever going to know with Ohtani. One of the things I learned at the winter meetings is that the teams that were bidding on him did not know exactly what it was. Yeah. They were basically relying on the assurances of Dr. Elatrash, which I trust him. Yeah. If he tells me he's going to be pitching in 2025, awesome.
Especially if you're the Dodgers.
Yeah. And now he didn't tell them because of doctor-patient privilege.
Right.
He didn't tell them before they signed it.
Right.
And so even now, I'm not even sure they know. I don't think they even care.
Yeah.
You know, he did something to his elbow, flip-flap, he's ready to go.
Yeah.
So I think we'll be much on the idea that we were with Harper last year, where maybe he doesn't make opening day, but probably, the concern with Harper, whose surgery was also done by Neil, was sliding. Yeah, and I think that's honestly a Harper issue more than the surgery issue. I think you can tell Harper to do something, and in the moment he's going to be playing like Bryce Harper does, and diving and sliding. You can say, Bryce, don't slide head first. Bryce, don't slide head first. In the moment, as well-intentioned as he is, he's probably going to slide head first.
Yeah.
Was that really a concern? No, not really, but he had that brace for most of the year, and then he took it off and suddenly started hitting better. So I'll be curious whether Ohtani's hitting early in spring training, whether he's wearing a brace, whether they're just going to go slow with him.
Yeah.
Because you could almost have a new opening day. I think just for ticket sales, whatever day Ohtani debuts is going to be huge. So if you're doing that at home in, May, I don't think that's a bad thing. Though I do expect it's very, very likely, I would say better than 50%, that he's ready to go on opening day.
And then a year from now, from a pitching perspective, feeling
that's
good about
the
that.
thing. We're going to know about the pitching earlier because just like in, 2019, when he was coming back from Tommy John, but didn't hit or didn't pitch. Right. Sorry for not knowing the year off the top of my head. He rehabbed in plain sight. He was playing well rehabbing. Yeah. Because hitting doesn't stress the UCL. He was hitting after his injury. So I think we're going to see that. We're going to know when he's throwing. We're going to know when he's back on the mound. We're going to see all that. And I think, you're going to be able to be relatively conservative with this because they don't need him before opening day well, they might need him, but
Yeah.
they're not going to get him before opening day 25. And then that rotation in 25, it's really, really interesting because now you've got Glasnow, now you've got Ohtani. Who knows about Yamamoto? If they have that, then that gets crazy.
So Ohtani missed 2019. That was the year he didn't pitch.
Yeah.
While I've got you, Walker Buehler coming back from a second Tommy John surgery, expected to be on an innings limit. There's a report that he might not. They might delay his beginning of the season so that he's available at the end. Give me your opinion on kind of where we're at on second time Tommy John guys.
Yeah, revisions aren't that worrisome, and we're seeing more of them because just like Walker Buehler, they injure him in high school or college, and then those guys make it to the pros. It's unfortunate, but again, we've learned a lot. With Buehler, it's a classic Tommy John, so I don't think he'll have those limitations. I can remember I had an event, this was with Andrew Friedman when he was with the Rays, I want to say 2007, 2008, and they were talking about different ways to bring guys back from injuries because they were hoping to make the playoffs, and that's when it was really unusual for the Rays to do it. They were hoping to have guys who could go into the playoffs and not hit inning ceiling. So it wouldn't surprise me if they would do that with Buehler. I think because of the distance he has, it's been 15, 16 months by the time we get to spring training or opening day that he should be normal. He should. We see these guys come back. So I don't have any worries about it, but we see guys misquoting Dr. Andrews and innings limits. I think it was Matt Harvey that was the kind of the pivot point for the change. Talking to doctors, I still think it's horribly wrong. I think we're way, way too conservative with these guys, but nobody wants to make a mistake with a $135 million pitcher.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. Okay, last question because it kind of relates to all this. Where are you at on the 6-man rotation? There's reports that that's what Ohtani's going to need. And then obviously if you've got a guy like Glasnow that you're kind of trying to protect, Walker Buehler coming back first time, do you think that it kind of relates to what you just said? Is that helpful, or is that just somebody sort of covering their own ass, so to speak, in the sense of, well, if we do a 6-man rotation and somebody gets injured, less people are going to point their finger at me?
Yeah, I don't believe in the 6-man rotation in general. If you have 6 really good pitchers, I mean, if you can roll out, Glasnow and Buehler and Miller and Yamamoto and Ohtani and maybe Sheehan, okay, that's 6 good pitchers. That's how the 5-man rotation came up in the first place when the Mets had Nolan Ryan and Kuzman and Seaver and a whole bunch of guys. So if you got 5 men that are, or 6 men that are, if you got 10 men that are really, really good, hey, have a 10-man rotation. Awesome. Figure out the bullpen, but it's one of those things where I think the 6-man only works if you have 6 really good pitchers. Now you're probably going to need 7, 8, not 12, as you said for the Dodgers last year. But the 6-man itself, there's absolutely no evidence that it helped Ohtani. He still blew out his elbow. There's no evidence that it helped the team because the Angels sucked. Unless you have 6 really good guys, don't bother. I don't even like the 5-man. I think the best possible thing is the 4-man. So there's more baseball history and baseball knowledge with the 4-man than with the 5. And I think especially when you're rotating guys through, there's ways to be creative to manage the innings and the workload. And so I'll be very interested in seeing what the Dodgers do this year, especially if Kershaw doesn't come back. And I think that might be the pivot point. The more I hear about this surgery, the less I think Kershaw is going to come back. And I hate to close with a bad note for the Dodgers. But this is one of those situations where I'm just not entirely confident. I hope he comes back. I don't want a Hall of Famer to go out like that for a guy who is basically answering the what if Sandy Koufax had kept playing after his elbow issues. It wasn't exactly the same. They're the same pitcher.
It's crazy.
The same uniform. So I hope Kershaw comes back. I'm worried he won't.
Now, I got to ask a follow-up. Based on, are you saying come back this year or that it would be a career ender?
I think it's career ender. I don't know how much he has left. I don't know if he'd want to come back. He's got kids that are growing. He's got plenty of money. Do you want to how long do you want to rehab something? He's been fighting. This is just like Koufax. If you ever read Jane Levy's book on Koufax, he just got tired of rehabbing and dealing with the pain and the stress and the things he had to do between starts. And if your arm just hurts all the time, if you can't lift it the day after a start, Now, granted, Kershaw's not out there throwing 150 pitches or something like that.
Yeah.
I just don't know how long Kershaw wants to do that. That's one of the things with modern baseball is these guys are making enough money now that they don't have to go back and have a job in the offseason. One of my favorite things, if you haven't seen It Ain't Over, the documentary about Yogi Berra, he was a maitre d' for the first 2 years he was with the Yankees in the offseason. Imagine going to a restaurant and Yogi Berra's seating you. That's crazy.
Yeah. And that's and the Kershaw stuff is based on kind of the surgery that he's had more so than anything else.
Yeah, it's just the fact that back has been problematic for so long, and Ron and the rest of the medical staff has done so much to keep him going. That maintenance, the hours that they're all putting in to get him ready. He's still having some setbacks. It's just accepted at this point. Now, if he can come back and make 2 or 3 starts, great.
Yeah,
I don't want him to go out on the IL, but unfortunately, Father Time wins every single time.
Yeah, well, I like you said, as a Dodgers fan, I don't like hearing that, but I think on our show we've talked a lot about like, is he really going to come back? And it's kind of crazy just to bring this full circle. I tweeted this out, like I was looking at Glasnow's innings pitched. Clayton Kershaw has thrown more innings every single season than Glasnow has. If you count just major league innings, if you count minor league innings and rehab starts, then Glasnow got him by like 2. But it just puts in perspective how much time Glasnow has missed, because I think as Dodgers fans, we're well aware of how much time Kershaw has missed over the last 4 seasons or so. But man, it's a crazy thing. And it's funny because when I reached out, I was like, oh, I want to talk Glasnow. And as I'm putting this show together, I'm like, well, there's Ohtani and there's Buehler and you brought up Kershaw. So tons of great insight, Will. I appreciate your time again. You can find Will on social media at Injury Expert, and then tell us a little bit about Under the Knife .substack.com.
Under the Knife is my newsletter. It goes out whenever necessary. I sent one out after we learned about Max Scherzer's injury. Was that yesterday, 2 days ago? The time flies. I talked about the Tyler Glasnow trade and my worries about the depth for 24 and that they still need at least 1 pitcher, probably 2. I do it every single week. Often 3, 4, even 5 times a week. It's $5 a month. So, don't get that grande latte. Pay me instead and learn about injuries and the concepts behind them.
Awesome. Well, Will, again, I love the stuff that you put out. You're one of the first people I go to when it comes to Glasnow or that type of news that breaks. I want to see what you have to say about the injury. Because look, all this stuff is
I am the Grim Reaper.
Having somebody who's kind of been through the wars, so to speak, of deciphering all of this information is super helpful. So again, thanks for coming on today.
Hey, thanks a lot, Jeff. I really appreciate it.
All right, everybody. Again, you can check us out at DodgerBlue.com. You can subscribe and ring the notification bell here as well. My name is Jeff Spiegel. Enjoy the rest of your day. And as always, go Dodgers.